Get 15% off a set of BrakeMess Select, Select Pro, or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors now at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. Or should I say, welcome to another edition of Exhausted Decorator. I'm your host, extremely exhausted, Kim Wanup. I'm delirious, people. I'm delirious at this point. I've never been on a show like it, and I thought that impeachment was like taking the cake of working to the bone and getting it all done kind of last minute, but man, this show really takes it to another level. I have never experienced this type of dressing a set up until rehearsal almost every single time. And it's exhausting and it's not fair. It's not why I got into this. I didn't spend all this time prepping and learning about all of these sets and characters and everything to be really rushed at the end to try to get it done. And understandably, we've all been there, and it happens. And you get a set late for many reasons, and you don't have enough time, and there was so much more you wanted to do and so much more you wanted to give to this set, and you just run out of either time or money. But this is, I'd have to say almost every set. It's not one. It's like every set. So it's something new, something exciting and new that I don't like. I don't like it. And it's hard. It's hard to keep going when you want to put your best out there and you don't feel like your best is being presented. And it's hard to talk about. I really got to be honest. It's hard to put this out there because people I work with could be listening, and but I want to be honest. This is the roller coaster of awesomeness of being a set decorator, and many other positions. It's not just me. Other departments feel this pressure too. Costumes, props. Grips. I know grips. It's a cluster, but at the end of the day, when it gets on film, my new saying is from that TikTok guy who says who's gonna know? Nobody's gonna. They're gonna know. Who's gonna know? They're gonna know. That guy. It keeps going in my head because there are many, many times when I've decorated sets and I didn't get that pillow, or I didn't get this, and it's not gonna look right, but no one's going to know because I'm the only one who knows that that pillow was supposed to be there. So in that aspect, sets look great. And I am very proud of what our designer has been able to accomplish, and my set deck team has just been working to the bone. I can't even acknowledge how much effort and passion has been put into it from my group of people. And so in that sense, it is a different way to work under pressure at all times. But it's a lesson, and I think every job is a lesson. And I don't know if I've said this before, but ever since Bones, I have kept this journal of just lessons I have learned on shows. And I write a little blurb at the end of every season of what I have learned. And a couple years went by and I didn't do it anymore, and I regretted not noting those things and tried to go back and think about those seasons. And it's been very helpful to see the progression of what you learn in life or on these jobs. And it could be for any occupation. But just keeping a tab on yourself of what I've learned here, like, why am I really here? It's always like, whenever you run into someone and I'm like, hey, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm a nurse. And you're like, oh, great, you save lives, great. And they're like, what do you do? And oh, I work in TV. Oh my God, that's great. Not really, you're saving lives. So the journal, I have felt, has always been a little grounding of lessons learned and remembering things. I don't know everything. I really don't. And I certainly didn't know anything, my first season of Parks or my last season of Veep, which seems like a lifetime ago. So it's if you don't do that, I would suggest keeping a little design journal because it's fun like that. It's I gotta say, it's been really hard to get to record this podcast, and I'm trying to do 2 a month. So I'm getting it under the wire here, just because work has been so much, and it's hard to talk about. I'm not excited. I'm excited about my work, but I'm exhausted, so I'm not excited to talk about it. And it's also like I gotta say everything in code because I can't really talk about the sets that I'm doing until they have been aired. So that's always weird. That's why I think my Instagram kind of sucks, because I can't put things on like that I'm doing right now because I can't show it. You sign an agreement that you're not going to show things. So there's always that. So I'm not that lame, people. I just can't show things right away. What's one up watching? Well, not much because I'm exhausted. But I'm doing House of Dragons. It's good. I don't care. It's not great. It's not Game of Thrones. I get it. But it's good. The design and everything's still there. The costumes, and it feels like it's being done on like a smaller scale, which, hey, Game of Thrones was like, wow, huge. And I still value all of the sets that they've done, and it's just beautifully it's kind of like a tribute to Game of Thrones in a sense. Production designer Jim Clay and set decorator Claire Nia Richards. Bravo for taking it on, because you probably have so many critics and from so many fans of Game of Thrones, I can't even imagine. So I'm in. I think it's like episode 6 or something. And it's the story of the House of the Dragon people. Now, if they should do House of all the other people, I don't remember their names, but I'm in for that too. I just want to watch some Game of Thrones type stuff. I think it's great. I'm still watching The Patient, which is on Hulu, and it's going nowhere. I don't know, I think that's episode 5 or 6. Nothing is going on there. The story has not progressed like 1 ounce. My friend was like, why are you even going to finish it? And I'm like, I don't know. Something's got to happen, right? They couldn't have put all this time and money and Steve Carell in this and nothing happened. So I'm sticking with that. I'm going to start Dahmer. Now, I've had production designer Matthew Flood Ferguson on this podcast if you want to hear his experience on the Netflix show Hollywood and other Ryan Murphy things that he's done. And he did like Running with Scissors, and like he's done great shit. He production designed Dahmer, and I remember running into him when I was on Impeachment, and we were saying, how's it going? Yeah. What's your palate? And ours was like oatmeal and his was like urine. It's like, then I look at the previews and it does look all yellow and urine-y. So it is that's how we talk. What's your palate? So, but I do want to watch the work because I know how much effort is put into a limited series like that, obviously. And his decorator, Melissa Leach, I'm sure they've done a wonderful job. I can't get in the headset to do Dama right now. You know what I'm in a headset for? One Up is watching Sister Wives. And I know you don't want to hear about it, but Sister Wives is awesome. I've been watching these people, like I said, for like 12 years, and I'm finally getting a payoff. It's finally coming down. It's crashing all down. These poor people have put their lives on TV for all these years, and it's breaking up. And look, I'm not seeing joy in it. I'm just saying like I knew it. I knew something good was going to happen years ago. So that's kind of what House of Dragons, Dahmer, I'm going to start, and Sister Wives. That's about all my brain, and obviously Housewives. But that's about it. That's all I got. Football. I mean, thank God football's back. Go Birds. So, yeah. I have to say, and I've said before, I get to interview people who I've never met. And in discussing sets with people, it's intimate, and it's nice. It's great to open up to other people about your own experiences and relating to their experiences. And in this conversation I had with this episode's production designer, Neil Patel, I just felt like, wow, I really like this guy. Like, I don't know, he was super, as usually everyone is, super easy to talk to. He's in South Africa talking to me, and we coordinated those times, and he was just genuinely, just a great guy who I never would have gotten to meet if not for this podcast. So I'm always super, as my twins would say, super duper, just thankful that anyone gives me any time. So in this episode, I speak with production designer Neil Patel. Neil is currently shooting Showtime's Shaka, King of the Zulu Nation, in South Africa, while he's promoting his new series, Pretty Little Liars: Original Sin, on HBO Max. Neil came off of designing Apple TV's 19th century spin on Emily Dickinson's life story called Dickinson, Season 2, to take on Pretty Little Liars during COVID. So this guy is back to back to back. He was on Dickinson, Pretty Little Liars, and now he's in South Africa. I mean, guy's busy. We talk about the locations and the builds of Pretty Little Liars, and how his intriguing design becomes another character in this horror series. We also talk about the influence of his background in theater design, which he did dozens of Broadway, West End plays, and operas, and how it led to his career in designing TV and film. You can check out his website at neilpatel.space, and his IG is also great at Design Scoundrel. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for making this happen. I mean, you're in a way different time zone, right?
Yeah, it's 7 p.m. here, but it's Sunday. Yeah, I'm in Cape Town.
Oh my God, that's great. Do you like it?
Yeah, oh my God, it's like it's incredible.
Right?
Such a beautiful.
I honeymooned. We went on safari, and we hit Jamestown. We hit Johannesburg, and then we were in Kruger National Park, and it was.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah, but we looked into Cape Town. We didn't have enough time to do it all, but I really would love to go there.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I have not been. I have spent a couple of days in Johannesburg, but yeah, I think over the Christmas break, I'm hoping to do a safari thing, either in Kruger or in Botswana.
Oh yeah.
but yeah, Cape Town is really different. That like the climate is really like it's very stormy and cloudy here today, and Johannesburg, and we're shooting in both Cape Town and Durban, and Durban's like subtropical, and it's very different than here. So it's a pretty interesting country. But Cape Town is, well, you're in LA, right?
Yeah.
So Cape Town, like you would like the climate and the food and the wine is very reminiscent of California. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I heard it's a great wine town.
Oh, it's insane. And it's really, really cheap compared to what we're used to.
Yeah.
Like you get really good wine for almost nothing.
Yeah.
Great.
All the wine we had there was fantastic. We were kings. Wonderful hotel rooms that we stayed in outside of Johannesburg. They were amazing, and they were cheap compared to what our dollar goes for here. So we loved it.
Yeah. The dollar rand exchange is very good for us. So anyway, I'm having a good time. I'm doing a very different project than Pretty Little Liars. I'm doing a Showtime series about Shaka Zulu. So it's 18th century pre-colonial Africa. So it's a very different thing, but it's fun.
How do you find, like, when you get there, I know that it's kind of people giving you recommendations of crew and everything, but how is it finding crew and getting up and running and shooting?
It's really, it's a bit complicated, but I've been very fortunate that I think I have like really, really good crew.
Oh, good.
And I love the people I'm working with, but it's, when you take on a job, when I'm in the States, like when I'm approached about a job, one of the considerations besides how much I wanted to do the project is if I can put together the crew I want to execute the ideas. So here, this job was such an extraordinary kind of opportunity. I kind of took the leap of faith and said, I'm sure I'll find people there. The only person from the US I brought, which I didn't physically bring because he worked remotely, was the concept artist I like to work with. But other than that, I met people here, and they're great. I mean, there's a very robust film industry here.
Yeah.
So there's some really experienced people, but because this show is so specifically pre-colonial Africa, particularly Zulu culture, I was really looking for people who were familiar with that realm, and there's lots of them. I mean, there were like really good candidates here. So, and they're great. They're really they work really hard here. They don't have unions, so they're used to working extraordinary hours. So.
Well, so are we. We used to have unions.
We have unions, and we're still used to working. Yeah, but it's good. No, that's all been very good, actually.
I think today's my first day off in 17 days, so.
Yeah.
That has got to be just a huge project to take on. I mean, just going on location for that and having knowing that it's been done, and then probably the reimagination of it all, and I know how everything has to be bigger, better, more now. That's a big thing to take on. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's huge. It's very exciting and daunting at the same time, but it's cool. And we, as you said, like all these shows expect a kind of cinematic scope that is not really built necessarily into the time and the money of a series schedule. But we are definitely going for that. And also because our period, like I'm having, well, not just me, my department, the production is having sets built from artisans making elaborate huts by hand out of thatching, and it's all natural materials.
God, that's amazing.
So very different than working on contemporary show where you're building walls and
construction drawings.
Yeah, this is sort of like, I need a hut kind of this big. Here's my sketch,
Yeah.
And also we have to we're outside, so we're dealing with nature, wind, rain, all the, things. But it's good. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty extraordinary show.
I saw on your IMDb that was your like in progress or whatever, and I was like, ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one, and so different from Pretty Little Liars. I mean, I don't know if you could get much different.
Yeah, it's a totally different world. I went from Dickinson to Pretty Little Liars to Hulu. It's pretty extreme difference, but I'm very fortunate to be working on great projects. So.
It is amazing sometimes when you get calls and you think, oh man, I really want that. In the process of like, do I really want something this big? Or I think we all want to do that because it gives our creativity like these open doors of like, oh, I'll get to research this, I'll get to do this and everything. When did you have to put together like a presentation in the beginning?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I was actually approached by the showrunner, Bridget Carpenter, who I met years ago in New York because my wife is a theater director, and her background is in playwriting, and she's the showrunner on this. And she's like, "We're having trouble finding somebody. Would you be interested?" And at the time, I was actually at home in quarantine because I had COVID at the time. I was like, yeah, what the hell? I'll put together a presentation. And then I was like thinking, am I really ready to be out of the country for 9 months or a year or whatever this is going to take to make this show? But the material was so compelling and so interesting to me. It's like what you want, I think, you want projects that are actually going to change you.
Yes.
When you come out of it, you're going to be different because you've been involved in something that's so challenging and, hopefully, changes the way that you see the world. So,
yeah, I always say how lucky I think all of us are to get into these projects where you learn so much because of the deep research that we all have to do to make them realistic and to, make the scenery come alive and all the details and everything. Like, I would never think that I'd be researching, what astronauts eat right now, or like you thatching together some roofs and stuff. Like, it's awesome. It makes our minds grow so much. I love it.
It really does. It's constantly changing, which is good.
Yeah, I love it. So what is your prep on this?
I wrapped Pretty Little Liars in the beginning of May, and I had a week off, and I came here and tech scout. I'm not tech scouted, director scouted. And then I went back to New York, and pretty much the month of June I was in New York prepping this, just kind of concept renderings and kind of to figure out the world. And then I came here at the beginning of July into full on prep, and we shoot in 3 weeks. So.
Oh wow.
It was a good, healthy prep period, and you always want more time, but we've had time, and
we always want more time, and a lot of times more money. money and time.
Money and time make the difference, right? Always.
When you took on Pretty Little Liars, were you thinking about the influence that the previous Pretty Little Liars had? Like, it's a huge show. Huge following.
Honestly, I'm not that familiar with the original Pretty Little Liars, though I have children who are very familiar with it.
Right.
So when I had the first meeting with Roberto and Lindsay, I confessed my pretty much total ignorance of the original series, and they were like, "That's great. You
Good.
don't need to know anything about it."
Oh, okay, good.
It's,
yeah.
yeah, they're like, the show is connected to it, and we are in debt to the Pretty Little Liars, which is a massive franchise, but we're making a different show. So you should make yourself familiar with it, but it's not going to look anything like that show. So that's, I think, what made me intrigued about taking it on, and particularly because when I met with them, my presentation, I was like really zeroing in on a kind of horror 80s, 90s look
Right.
that I thought was really interesting about the show, and how it, manifested itself in like a lot of contemporary photographers like Gregory Crewston, and these kind of very staged, creepy, for lack of a better word, environment that make you tense. And I've never done a genre piece before, but I love horror movies. I like genre things a lot, personally, as a viewer. So I was like, I'd love to do this. I get to do these really, I'd come from shows like In Treatment and Dickinson, which are beautiful, they're like Peabody award-winning shows, but I have to say, I do like horror movies. So,
yeah, we all like to. I think that being scared, it's like invoking an emotion. That's why I think everybody likes to watch horror movies. We like it secretly.
I think that's really true. And that's what made me, as a designer, I thought, like, what, it's interesting because when you think about these movies, and, the references we were looking at, what makes them work, in terms of production design and cinematography, because it is really refined. It's not, it's really specific, the movies that work. And so I love that challenge and that idea of, of taking that on. And quite frankly, also at that time, I'd been in New York City since the beginning of the pandemic. And the idea of going up to the Catskills for a while was very attractive.
Yeah, so, getting out was a good thing.
Not a bad thing.
I read that the high school that you shot in was that a rundown high school? That was a closed high school?
Very much so. That was finding a high school was a big deal because we did not have time to build the entire high school on stage, especially given the scope the high school needed to have for the show. So we looked at some functioning, actual high schools, and there were a couple of good candidates, but the restrictions with COVID at the time were, made it impossible to think about using them.
Yeah.
So the location manager, David Ginsburg, started we were like, there must be an empty high school here somewhere. And he found this place north of Hudson, New York, that was had not been a high school since the early 90s. It'd been owned by this local artist and used as exhibition space, had basically gone into a kind of complete state of disrepair, which was perfect for us because that was the look we were looking for. And also, it's not a real high school at this point. It had been. So there are no students, there's no COVID issues.
Perfect.
There's just production issues, like where this high school had no cell service, or there were bats living in the gym. There were a lot of problems with this location, but visually it was a really great location.
I think one of the things when I was watching it, I noticed that the hallways, you have those beautiful milk glass lights throughout, but the hallways seem so like smaller. And because usually in high schools, I feel like there's just big hallways, you got the lockers and everybody's walking around and just but to me, I don't know, it felt like they were smaller, and I was wondering if the hallway was a build or if there were specific choices to use the smaller hallways just to get the feeling of like creepiness or something. I don't know.
That's interesting, because actually the high school, the location high school, that's what the hallways were. And the build hallway, we did build a hallway on stage, and we basically copied what we had on location. They were pretty small. They were, you're right, they were not like wide, but it did give a sense of claustrophobia and tension. And weirdness that was helpful.
So did you build all the girls' bedrooms?
Yeah, all the girls' bedrooms, all the girls' interiors were built.
Mm.
Only the exteriors were location. So, I mean, in the beginning of the prep, we kind of toyed with, should we try and dress locations for interiors? It becomes like, especially on a series schedule,
Yeah.
impossible.
No, you're going back and forth. You got to go back there. You got to redress it. You got to find other locations that tie in with that house so you can make a day. Like, yeah, it becomes really hard.
People, and it's all that kind of thing. So and also because we really wanted to make each of the girls' bedrooms really specific and detailed, it was so much to have the control building them on stage was really key.
Your use of graphic wallpaper is just dynamic. Like I love all of the looks and like all of the moodiness and everything in their bedrooms. It really does lend to all of the different personalities that you brought out. It was just wonderful. And the lighting, I have to say the lighting in this show is really good. It's really good.
Yeah, we had really good DPs in the show, and that was one of the first things in prep I was kind of obsessed with. Is I don't think I've done a show. Usually you have two or maybe one, two, maybe three at the most, kind of hero interior locations for your show, but in this one I had the 5 Pretty Little Liars, and then when you consider Kelly, Karen, it's really 6 people that you're really representing their interior worlds. And so I immediately wanted to try and dial in, like, who are these people? Who are these girls? Like, what is their family? What is the socioeconomic level? What are their interests? Because I think the more specific, like always, the more specific and detailed you can be, the more powerful the visuals. So, and I think especially in a horror genre where it can be generalized because it's not what's really focused on, but I think in this show, because you have to sustain it for 10 episodes, you really need to start to know these characters and care about them in some way. There has to be stakes.
So. Oh yeah, you have to. I did a movie with about high school girls, and I use a lot of Instagram as research. It's like following all these like teenage girls and then like looking for anyone who had pictures of their bedrooms, and
it's hard to find stuff actually.
And then you find stuff and you're like, is that too on the nose? Like then you don't want to like just be too much. You don't want to have everything in one room. You really have to, personality wise, see what these girls are. And I also think as teenage girls, they were fun sets to do. I don't know if your decorator had a good time with it, but it is, because you're so alive in that time of your life, and you're exploring, and you have the colors and everything that you gave to them. It was really great to see.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Like, and our decorator had a great time with it. I mean, it was a lot of fun to think about. The thing I think in our job, sometimes we have to invent even more detail that's in the script. So we have to think like, we're given this information about this girl, but like, we come up with our own stories that maybe no one else knows about. They were like, oh, I think she was really into this then. And, she got this chair from this, because we have to create our own narrative about the character to give it specific meaning in the set. So that was really fun. And it is like a time, teenagers are, especially that when they're, our characters are between 16 and 18 years old, that is when you are very alive in the world, curious about everything. And we didn't want it to be the cliche of, they have the pictures of the music's people,
bands,
their idols. We want it to be more like these characters actually have specific interests, or actually 3-dimensional characters. They're like Tabby's into film, and
she's great.
It's a ballet dancer. They all have they all have careers and ideas that they want to pursue. They're like at that point in their life where they're imagining what their life will be. So that was really important to kind of portray that in the sets and give them each a sense. And like all production designers and set decorators, we love wallpaper.
I love wallpaper.
Wallpaper. Yeah, you've got great
Yeah,
wallpaper.
I love it. I love wallpaper. I almost hate to put, I haven't even done it. I've lived here a year and a half. I haven't even put up a lot of art on any of the walls that I have wallpaper on because I just love the graphic. It's the art of it.
Yeah, like that paper behind you is like beautiful. It just fills. And that was also something that was interesting about our showrunners. Roberto, he will absolutely profess that he is nervous about negative space. He doesn't like it. So it's very specific aesthetic, because sometimes you can fill a frame with a lot of negative space and one beautiful detail. That's not what this show was going to be about. It's about filling the frame, kind of like a beautiful classical painting, with everywhere you look, there's something interesting to see. Even though you don't necessarily have time to see it all in a TV series, as opposed to looking at a painting where you can just sit in a museum and stare at it. But the idea was to fill the frame with a lot of texture and details. So that was a challenge. And that was definitely, that's where you get into the time and money issue, because you really need time to do that. And especially because I don't think anybody ever wants to just throw dressing at the problem. You want the dressing to be considered and specific, so that it's something we mean to put up there, and not just like, okay, there's an empty space here, what do you have?
I know. I hate that. And I always say, like, there are blank walls in life, like not everything. And it sometimes, when, like, if an onset's like, oh, they wanted something on that wall and I move this picture over, and it's like, it's such a letdown sometimes of like, I dressed the whole room and you picked the 6 inches of wall that didn't have a picture on it, and you had to move something over. Like, and I feel like that's so like old, kind of like old school TV, of like the picture has to be just off center, just enough to like make it look like there's a hallway out there, or like, and I think that we've all evolved so much in our decorating and design that the whole room, the spaces are all completely designed and everything. And so I think that we've all given production, great opportunities and great vignettes of where to put the camera. Just move the camera.
No, exactly. I hear you. I mean, I totally agree.
Oh my God.
It's like you have, I think that's the right approach. Like, you dress the set to make it look right, and then make the frames line up with what's there, because that's what I've definitely had directors who say that. I once had a director say to me, we were trying to, because I feel like a lot of the time now in the prep, they're like, okay, the camera's going to, we're dressing the set to what we think the frames are going to be, but we don't know what the frames are going to be, right? Like, they always change. It always changes on the day. You need to design a considered and well thought out set, and let the shooters find the frames within that. I totally agree. That's what you have to do, because otherwise it becomes there has to be intention for the frame. Otherwise it's always about like, move that thing over. It's like that lamp. One thing that drives me crazy with a lot of things I see, and I've been in a situation where it's been asked of me, is where apartments look like lamp stores.
Oh, I hate it.
It's like no one has 10 lamps in their living room.
No one has 10 lamps. And no one has their lamps on in the daytime. Okay?
No one has their lamps on in the daytime. And they don't have that many lamps.
No one has that many lamps. And I would say, I was looking at some of the lighting and practicals on the sets, and it seemed like they used yellow, like a lot of yellow lights inside, or I was trying to see if they were all yellow shade, but the light coming out was more yellow. Like, was that discussed a lot about like color bulbs in the lighting?
Yeah, we definitely did talk about using very you know, a lot of chromatic yellow and orange
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful.
we were looking at a lot of like, it was interesting in the prep of this, which was, you know, looking at a lot of the classic horror films. They are, especially the really, you know, some of them were made on such low budgets that you like, you kind of, it's kind of admirable the craft that went into
Yeah, like
how they accomplished.
Carrie was made for like $100,000 or something crazy. Like I remember hearing that. Like,
And it looks amazing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. Like Carrie's house. I mean, like the set decoration, the production design is kind of like really, really well thought out
yeah,
and crafted. I mean, you know, of course, there's like The Shining, because it's Kubrick. That's of course amazing.
yeah,
Um, but a lot, you know, a lot of them are not big budgets. They're genre films, so they're not big studio films. But there's an incredibly thoughtful craft that goes into making them, I think,
oh yeah,
which is interesting because it's very focused. It's focused on the scare factor,
yeah,
you know, and build anxiety with certain techniques, and they're not necessarily expensive production elements, but they're just the right things that give you anxiety
yeah,
in a space. So
yeah. The it's it is an art form to get creepiness out of your dressing and your
yeah, it is.
designs. Like that movie theater. I mean, what an ode to like Hollywood and movies and everything. Is so beautiful. I love that movie theater. The lobby is like
Oh,
Art
thank you. Yeah,
Deco and
we love making that. We found there was actually the exterior location was in the town. We were in Saugerties, New York, and that at the Orpheum Theater is a real theater there. That's a and we debated in prep whether we should dress that lobby or build the lobby. And Roberto in particular had fantasized about building a theater lobby set. So we built the lobby, which was the right choice. And it was such a great set to build.
yeah.
And of course, when you have a bunch of filmmakers making a film lobby, everyone's like, oh, I remember we need this over here and this
Right.
game
Too
needs
many
to be over
cooks.
here. Yeah, because everybody has their memories of it. And it was kind of a great set also you know, we had a functioning popcorn machine and soda machine. So when you walked into it, it smelled like,
Oh, that's great.
this is me back
Oh, that's
to
great.
when I was a high school student going to this movie theater to see these movies. So yeah, it was a really nice theater. It was a great set to build.
Oh, that's great. And I'd have to say, I hate when there's a holiday in the script.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
the Christmas in that lobby was spectacular.
Yeah, we had full on holiday. Of course, we had Halloween, which was
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
and Thanksgiving and Christmas. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was a fun Christmas. Also, I think because what was fun with the holidays is because our town is a working, you know, supposed to be kind of a town that time has forgotten, a kind of working class town. So everything's backdated into the 80s, 90s. So all the decorations,
Yeah.
we didn't want to do anything contemporary.
Yeah.
Everything was sort of classic. And those were really fun things to do.
I do appreciate that when we do holidays. Like, oh, maybe this house over here has all the old stuff, and then like these are the LEDs people, and like there is when you get to do old like 60s and 70s decor holidays is really fun. It is. There's so much cool stuff back then.
Yeah.
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 I
Very
do.
simple but effective stuff with the sheet ghosts and the
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
the cats and but it's very you know, especially for a horror film, it's very evocative imagery.
When you looked at older films like Carrie and The Shining, what is it that stood out in those films that you wanted to like imply with this design?
I think in definitely with Carrie, it was you know, especially with this backstory of our character Angela, and the you know the house that appears in later episode. It was that kind of really, really layered creepy, religious,
yeah.
aggressive vibe that Carrie does really well. And of course, the prom, which
Yeah.
became our Spirit Week, which is kind of an iconic movie set by now. Those were things we wanted to refer to and also expand into our show. And the set, he's like a controlled frame. That's what you want. That's what you aspire to, right? Like somebody who's really thought out what the frame is going to be. The sets are exquisitely designed to the vision of the cinematography. And that it was really interesting looking at that hotel, and there is a lot of negative space, and that was what we used for the our in episode 1 in our pilot, Imogen and Karen, when they approached the bathroom and that symmetrical bathroom. That was very much an homage to that, and also the artificiality of that. Like, it was really interesting when we were designing it, because we had locations, and like you often do, you're then basing the set builds on the interior set builds on what you've learned from the locations. And the hallway, in that kind of house is not very long, but we wanted this tension as they approached the bathroom. So we kept on elongating. The pilot director, Lisa Soper, and I were working on this. She actually, her background is production design, so it was kind of interesting to work with a director who's a production designer. And we're like, let's make it 20 feet long. And then we'd look at it in 3D and like, it doesn't look long enough. Let's make it 40 feet long. Because we make it longer and longer, we're like, okay, this is ridiculous. This hallway would never exist in this house. But somehow it kind of works, because there is a suspension of disbelief in these kind of shows where you're like, I don't think the audience gets thrown by it. They believe it. And it just makes you more and more tense as the longer the walk.
Yeah, you're not thinking about the house. You're thinking about, like, well, what's in this bathroom and why are they walking towards it, and the anticipation of that. It was really well done, and for the design to invoke that emotion. It was great.
Exactly. Yeah. It's where the design is really serving the emotion, not the because sometimes we get caught up in continuity and architectural reality, and like films are lies. Like, in that way.
We're all lying.
We're making it up. Like, it's not real. That's what people who ask me, people who don't, who aren't in the bit, don't know the craft we do, will say, well, what do you do as a production designer? Don't you just shoot houses? And they're like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
If you just shot a house, no one would like the way that looked.
What's funny is I worked on Wheel of Fortune way back when, and they would take the show on the road like 3 times a year, like to Dallas or Pittsburgh or whatever, and they would spend millions of dollars taking this show on the road. And like, even my parents who have watched the show, they'd be like, well, you just did that in the stage, right? Because it's all one thing. And I always thought, God, that's probably the biggest waste of money. Like, taking a show on the road and everyone still thinks you're like on a stage somewhere. It was a sin.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we're not. I know one of the biggest compliments, I think, for us is like, oh, you shot that in a real hospital, or, oh, no, that was a set. Like, we made that all. We didn't, that's the compliment.
We want you to not be thinking about it, right?
How did you get into production design?
I actually started out in theatrical design in New York. I moved to New York to be, and worked really in a lot of downtown theater here, and well, not here, I'm in Cape Town now, but there, my home. And I actually got into production design. I always loved films, and actually I think a lot of my theatrical design was informed by my love of film, because that's where I grew up. I grew up in Wisconsin. I grew up where there wasn't a lot of theater, so it was a new thing to me when I went to New York.
You have no accent at all from New York or Wisconsin.
I don't have a Wisconsin accent. Yeah, my sister does. I don't.
Isn't that funny?
I got out I was like, when I was 18, I was like, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
But I love it, but gotta leave it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, but and then I actually a couple of writers that I worked. I did a lot of new work, new plays, which was kind of what I was most interested in, which was just creating the visual world for things no one had ever seen before or heard before. And the writers I worked with transitioned. A lot of them also worked in television and film. So eventually, particularly, it was Neil LaBute and Warren Light, who eventually became a showrunner for SVU in New York. But he was the showrunner for In Treatment, which was my first kind of. I had done a couple of indie features, but also through people I knew in the theater, like people who were making the transition to become producing indie film. And he invited me. He wanted me to design In Treatment when it came to New York, and that was my first big TV built set production design job, which was kind of a good transition for me because that show is very contained in one or two locations.
Right.
It's a lot like theater in a way, but of course it's nothing like theater, like the craft of production design. I think like I had a great preparation in terms of script analysis and like really understanding a story and how to tell a story. But how you tell a story visually on stage is so different than how you tell it on camera. So it was a real learning experience to figure out how I apply those skills to making it work on screen, and for camera. But I just loved it. I felt like I was like, it's the kind of thing where like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I think this way.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this
is the
way.
my brain. Yeah, my brain works this way. Like I'm thinking because I'm thinking of the big picture, but I'm also thinking of the minutia.
Yeah.
Which you don't see on stage. Because sometimes on stage I would get obsessed with like things the audience can't see from 50 feet away. But I'm like, it's really important what this prop looks like, But like on camera, it is because it can be the whole frame can be this prop or this textile or this detail that's really important. So
I've been on your website a lot in the last couple of weeks, and it's beautifully done, by the way. Your website, the layout and everything, and you have so many like inspiring pictures on there of your work and your theater work and even your art installation. Like you are nonstop. You're like in every genre there. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been busy.
Yeah,
I like to work.
And did you go right into Pretty Little Liars from Dickinson? Did you have any?
Yeah, pretty much. In fact, there was probably like an overlap. I went, Pretty Little Liars season 3 was, I think we finished early June, and I started location scouting in May for Pretty Little Liars. So it was right on. Yeah, I had no rest.
Oh wow!
But it was kind of it's kind of interesting now because a year ago, like everything is, especially now I'm in South Africa where there's almost no COVID. So like a year ago, it was such a different environment, or 18 months ago when I was going through that between the two shows, because we were in the, in fact, when I went to Pretty Little Liars with that summer, summer of 2021, there was a moment where we had no masks in the office and we were all fine.
Yeah.
And then Delta happened. So it was a
minute, but it was literally like one day.
For one day, and then it was like hell again. I mean, unfortunately, like our show, like Pretty Little Liars, we didn't really have, and Dickinson, we had, no one got very sick or anything. Nothing terrible happened, but we experienced a lot of delays. Like we had I think on Dickinson, there was a week where the entire wardrobe department was out with COVID. So, especially on that show, that's not a...
Yeah, you can't, can't go on that wardrobe.
Wardrobe department. So that was a tricky transition, but I was very happy. I'm very fortunate to have been working the whole time, so... I
feel like a lot of people, I mean, since the shutdown of COVID, we're all working. Like, I didn't get a break. Oh, I had a week off. Oh, now I overlapped. Like, it's kind of insane how much production has picked up since COVID, I think. And that we're all working through it. Like, I'm still in masks and 3 times a week testing in LA. The crew, some of them is like once a week, but we're all still in masks. We're all like, A group Zoom and everything. And
Oh, it's interesting. I was wondering what it was. That's still the case. Yeah,
yeah.
we're just testing, but we're not testing once a week, but no masks.
Yeah.
I don't know if but we're not shooting yet, so I wonder if that'll change when we're shooting.
It's so hot here too. Working in the masks is just awful. It's just another layer of like oppressiveness of like.
Oh, it's terrible. I remember the glasses, like this steaming glasses, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Remember when we had the big shield?
The shields? Yeah, the shields. And then we went to goggles, and then it was okay. And then, I think we had like maybe a half week of no masks, like early last summer, and then it was back, and we've been masked up ever since. Like, there was like a huge surge here about a month ago, and there's still probably, there's still probably at least, there's a positive almost like 2-3 times a week on our show. Like,
oh wow, what show are you on?
I'm on For All Mankind.
Oh, cool. Oh, Apple show.
So so it's I don't know. It's but everyone's fine with it's not.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. No one's actually getting seriously ill anymore. So
which is great. It's great, but the mask thing is such a bummer. I don't know when we're getting out of it.
But Pretty Little Liars, also our cast is so young. Like they, inevitably people, on the weekends they're doing things. Like they can't.
Yeah.
When we were, I think it was on. It was last winter, March or April. Things kind of lightened. Things got a little better, and there was a set deck. There was one of our dressers was actually, it was kind of amazing. He was the original guitarist for the Psychedelic Furs. What? They came to Woodstock and they did a concert with him. So of course we all went, because how could you not?
Well, yeah.
And we're all tested for vaccination, and none of us wore masks. And that's where I got COVID, including half the crew. And I was like, no.
I was outside. I was having a good time, and look what happened.
Having a good time. I had to go. How could we not go?
Oh man, I know. I do think that, like, well, if I'm not gonna get it at this party, I don't know when I'm gonna get it. Like, it was I finally went out because I have 3-year-old twins also, so I never get to go out. And there was the Emmy party for like our peer group and everything, so I went and I was like, oh my god, this is so exciting. But there is like this underlying fear, and it was outside, but I'm still kind of like, all right, don't hug anybody too close. You never know. You never know what's going on here. But yeah, you gotta have fun. I mean, you gotta get out. You gotta go to a concert.
Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes a mental health problem.
Yeah.
I think.
No, definitely. You did a lot of, it looked like, I mean, I didn't watch the whole season 2 of Dickinson, but there was a lot of outdoor like parties, and they're always like walking around. And so having done that season and it being period, is it hard to convey period when you're outside without like, people carrying water or like, like.
Oh, yeah. No, it's really, it's an interesting question, because actually we're going through that with Shaka Zulu now, because we have these huge village scenes. Like, you want all this activity and scope on in these outdoor scenes.
Yeah.
So, it's very tricky.
It is.
And in fact, when we got into season 3 with the COVID restrictions, just not having enough people to just fill the frame. And, I think a lot of shows had this, because you have the terrible like bar scene.
Yeah.
Where you can have 6 people. It's like, it's gonna look ridiculous. Like, how do you have to be really creative in the way you shoot it to make it work. but yeah, no, it's always difficult. I mean, I think especially in this period, wide shots, exteriors, you want lots of activity, background layered activity, and you want to bring that to life for sure.
I love how when you were talking about costumes, I do love how the costumes in Dickinson like it just bounce and off of your background, your sets. Like it's so collaborative and so like in sync. It's just beautifully done. It's such a pleasure. Like that show was just so. I love season 1. I didn't get to watch all of season 2 before talking to you, but I just love like all of it, the vibrancy, everything.
Yeah, we worked really. Jen Moeller, the costume designer on season 2 and 3, we worked pretty. We knew each other before, and that's always the nice thing in these projects. If you know the people, you feel comfortable collaborating with. You take down a barrier.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So really worked hard. Collaborating and really sharing information so that we really knew what each other were doing. So important to be in sync with the palette and the fabrics, with the background. We also, that show used a lot of beautiful wallpaper.
Yeah. And rugs. You have vibrant rugs in there too to bounce off. It's so great.
I had no idea until I did that show that wall-to-wall carpeting was a big thing in the 1850s. Like I mean, we always kind of think, oh, it's hardwood floors with rugs because that's our kind of contemporary aesthetic. But they covered the floors with really vibrantly patterned woven rugs. So it's really like in fact, I think in that show, we actually toned it down a little bit. Like when you really get into what the Victorians were into, they were into a lot of like pattern on pattern, color everything. Stuff that would be like everything. Some of it would probably pretty jarring to the contemporary eye because they really went for it. Also, they were, you have to remember their houses were all lit by lamps and candles. So like it was dark. So the way it looked to their human eye was very different. Like if you lit that for camera now, it'd be like, oh my God, I can't, that's too much information. But it is a very, very, I think that's always what's interesting with period pieces. We always automatically kind of put that layer of gauziness and monochromaticness to it, but right. Of course, was very vibrant. They used a lot of color, a lot of pattern.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was like turned up because of the writing and the tone of the show.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely did that too. I mean, we definitely leaned into it because of that. Also because the protagonist is an artist, right? Like a genius, like a great artist that we know, like Emily Dickinson. So we were like, how does Emily Dickinson see the world? Like when she looks at something, it's amazing, right? Because she's a poet and an artist. So she's seeing everything through that lens. So we wanted everything to kind of have that kind of intensity, especially in color and pattern, and also kind of even when you look at some of the I know the set decorator on Dickinson, Marina Parker, got really into the Victorian collages and things, which were kind of like surreal, with animal imagery and botanical imagery. It's very, very it lends itself immediately to that kind of artistic vision of the world. So that all worked really well. But we definitely leaned into it because it's her story.
Yeah. I just think it's a nice like tune to watch and not like stiff and boring. Like it's not boring. It's like exciting, and the music and like the colors and everything. Like it's a really well done like upgrade of her story. I just really like it. It's really good. Oh, when does season 3 come out? Do you know?
Oh, it's out.
Oh, 3 is out? I thought 2 was only out.
No, 3 is out. Yeah, 3 is out.
Listen, I'm in a deep hole right now.
I feel you.
I'm in a deep work hole right now.
There is so much. I mean, also in our business right now, there is so much content. There's no way you can watch all of it. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's so much, and also what's overwhelming is there's so much good content.
Good,
Just
good
good.
content. Yeah.
Say, like we don't have time to watch all of it, but it's good to know what's going on. But yeah, it's a lot. I know I try to at least watch like the pilot, episode of things that are going on, so at least I know what they are.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much good work and so much, especially as designers and craftspeople in this business, like it's overwhelming how much is, how the quality of what's going on, the scope of it is insane.
Are you watching anything that's inspiring right now? Are you getting any TV time over there?
Yeah, I have. I've been watching, I've been trying to watch things that are related to what I'm doing right now. So I actually, last night, I mean, this is nothing new. I've been diving into old stuff. Like I just watched Lawrence of Arabia again because our show, Shaka Zulu, has this kind of incredible cinematic scope. And that movie keeps on coming up with our cinematographer, Tommy Maddox, keeps on talking about, because we're doing a lot of large format, deep focus, which that movie is the incredible lesson of how to utilize that. So I've been watching older films like that. And then what else I've been watching? And then I've been picking up, because I'm out of town, so I have time on my hands sometimes. I've just been picking up on things I haven't had. Like we all have those big holes in our viewing that, I've never watched Fargo, and I watched all of Fargo.
Oh, it's so good.
Genius. Yeah, it's so good. Beautiful. So I've just been picking up on watching a lot of classic cinema, and also watching just recent stuff that I just haven't, for some reason I didn't watch.
I have been told about What We Do in the Shadows by friends and all, and then I had seen some parts of an episode for Emmy viewing and stuff, and then a couple weeks ago I was like, I got nothing right now. I'm going to dive into this. There's 4 seasons. This is good. In the background, while you're working at night. And I couldn't take my eyes off it, first of all, because the production design's pretty good for what they got going on, a horror type, it's like Dracula. It's like vampires and stuff. But I found it so funny. And then I was so pissed when I caught up to it. Because they're airing season 4 right now. And I was like, I got to wait 2 more weeks for another episode. And so if you're looking for anything just chill and funny.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
What Watch in the Shadows?
What We Do in the Shadows. It's on FX. I guess it's on Hulu. But man, I love when you watch something and then you're surprised of oh man, this was really good. And look at this design, and look at oh, I didn't even know this was happening.
I know, it's really shocking, all this stuff, it's completely out of your radar, and then you're oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
These people are doing beautiful work,
and just like you got 3 in a row here. I mean, more of just beautiful cinematic pieces that you have. I'm excited to see Shaka Zulu. Do you know when it's gonna be on?
It probably will finish shooting in March, so probably not until the end of 2023 or beginning of 2024. So,
nice.
Yeah, no, I hope it should be pretty amazing. It's an incredible world to create. It's beautiful.
Oh my God, yeah, and incredible that they're putting the effort and the money into it to shoot it. Seems authentically and correctly, so that's important.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I'm really impressed that they're really, they're doing it the right way. And it's also nice to be, sometimes you come to places, you're in other countries because of a tax credit or some reason.
Yeah.
You're we're here because this is the right place to do the show.
That's applaudable, actually. That's really nice. I'm glad to hear that. You're not shooting New Orleans for LA because it's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly, because it's cheaper. Exactly. We're here where the story actually took place.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coordinating all this with me. This was awesome, and I'm so glad to have gotten to speak with you and meet you. This was fantastic, and I really enjoy your work, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. This is great. I'm glad you do this. It's nice to get everyone's work out there.
Now, do you see what I said? He's a really good guy. He's a really nice guy. The guy's sitting there in South Africa, drinking some great wine, I hope, and, letting me in on his design secrets. How nice was he? And I really love hearing about the design process and getting excited about, that theater design that he did in Pretty Little Liars, and making having the real popcorn machine, and seeing the crew experience your set. That's something I don't know if I talk about enough, but when you're opening set and the crew is there, right before the cast comes in, it's exciting to see people experience your set and look at it and ooh and ah, and hopefully not put their feet up on the sofa or something. But it's nice. It's a nice compliment. Because these are the people who are experiencing your work in real life and not on a screen, and they're reading the whole experience of the room. So that popcorn story, I think, will always stick with me, because there is a thing about, and you rarely can do it today, to induce like smells in your set, because everyone doesn't like smells anymore. I feel like I would get fired if I made the room smell or something, and the actor or someone would get offended. But that all senses are encompassed in your set, and I really enjoyed talking with Neil about that, and really hearing about his background in theater. And if you look on his website, neilpatel.space, it's great. I mean, he's done so many productions and plays. It's amazing. The theater design is just gorgeous that he has done. So check that out. And thank you to Neil for giving me some time. Now, coming up, I don't know, people. I know my goal is 2 a month, and that does get us to 100 episodes by the end of the year. Yay! Look what we did. So that's my goal, 100 episodes by the end of 2022. I hope we get there. And thank you if you have ever left a review of the podcast. I do truly appreciate it. And if you haven't, it only takes a minute. Click, 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 click. 5 little stars. Thanks so much. But yeah, I always hate to say who I have coming up, because if I haven't recorded it yet, because you never know, schedules change and we all get busy. So I know I'm gonna make it. I know I'll get 2 out in October. I'm pretty sure. It's sketchy after that, but I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it to 100. That is the goal. So thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wannop for Decorating Pages.